Welcome back, RX Radio here, Melbourne. Melbourne.
You're
Not
getting
Melbourne.
it. You're getting it.
I'm
That's good.
kind of getting it. Yeah.
Melbourne.
Melbourne. Phonetically,
the rest of the world that says letters properly, because it's not an accent if you just say words wrong.
But hold on.
Sorry, mate.
Are we talking about like Australians or the rest of the world? Because they say what? How do they say that? H?
H.
No, fuck
I
off.
see Newfies do that.
Do you?
So yeah, I had an uncle Head.
Head.
Yeah, but his name was Ed.
What?
So they mess it up.
Jeez.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's
Ed.
the H's and the E's get messed up, which is like such a weird. Anyways,
Elp.
Anyways.
Melbourne.
So it would be Elp if you needed help.
Help. Nah, then I don't know. Sometimes they fuck it off into. Anyways, doesn't matter.
Anyways, we're here.
We're here in this place that has an R, but we don't pronounce it.
Yeah, Melbourne. Yeah.
Melbourne. Yes.
Yeah, that's one.
Great to be here.
Pivotal Conversation Studios. Kyle got sick of our shit, so he left us the studio to play around. So I guess would it be safe to say that we hosted James Macintosh as our guest today?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. The conversation geared towards those in the coaching community looking to build and scale a business, and maybe figure out. The thing is, look, there's a lot of people who copy other people, but if you're gonna pick people to copy, pick him. Or do that, right? The whole be yourself unless you can be Batman, then definitely be Batman. It's like he's pretty much fitness Batman.
Yeah.
So digging into, I think, the intangibles, I'm going to call them tangibles. I think most people classify them as intangibles that have allowed you to scale your business quickly to a high level that has given you financial freedom to only provide further value for your client. Right. So a conversation around values, morals, ethics, and I think one thing that came up more than any of that was giving a shit about the people you work with.
Yeah,
that's
so appreciate Mac taking the time. Hope you guys enjoy the episode. If you're looking to reach out to Mac, Coach James Mac on IG and at Only the Committed on IG as well. Feel free to reach out. Anything to add before we send it off to Lundo for the episode?
Yeah, just get this guy in your network. He's one of the most valuable resources I have. I can always go to him. He's going to respond to you. So reach out if James Mac he's the guy.
And if he doesn't respond to you, he's kind of like a dog. Like, I don't like people that don't like dogs, and I don't like people that dogs don't like.
Yeah.
That's kind of Mac. It's like, if Mac doesn't fuck with you, it's like a great vetting process done. And if you don't like Mac, it's like, you probably take a hard look in the mirror. So reach out to him, and if he doesn't respond, work on yourself until he does.
That's a you thing.
Yeah. But anyways, appreciate you taking the time to come out. Shout out Pivotal Conversation Studios for having us.
Yeah.
Tell Kyle to work harder. We know he's not actually on a meeting. And yeah, we'll see you guys on the next episode. Lundy, hit it.
You're tuned in to RX Radio.
Oh, brilliant. It's okay. This will come as a surprise to know people. You still coach, which surprised me. It's been a while since we've lived under the same roof for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
And the fact that you still coach is like,
I love it.
really?
I do, man.
Oof. I got out the game, man.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd
I
like
got
to be
so
hands-on.
jaded.
I like to be hands-on.
When
I don't
this-
like remote coaching.
Yeah.
as
I
much
guess
as
that's what more to my point. Like being on the road with you and seeing you, you
Yeah.
know, get on calls and crack open spreadsheets and stuff.
I only do it for people I like.
That's fair enough. That's
So if I'm not coaching you and you've inquired, you can do that math.
You're off the Christmas card list. When did you start?
When I start?
Yeah. When did you start
Online?
online coaching? Yeah.
COVID.
Really?
I did. I probably had a few clients that I managed online before that,
Yeah.
but really, I've never been big into it. But my biggest client load was probably like around 20.
No shit.
Like peak COVID, like right when everything shut down.
Really? That
Yeah.
was when I fucked it off forever.
Yeah,
I can't do it, man. Opening spreadsheets gives me anxiety because I'm like you, right? Like we're sitting around and he's writing code in the
hard.
Matrix, and I'm going. I just write the numbers in the squares.
Yeah.
Like the squares don't do anything.
Yeah, sometimes
I
I
just,
make them
I just try and
colors, too.
write between the lines. Like
Yeah.
that's what I try and do on spreadsheets. Because when did you start online?
Also, just after COVID as well, in theory.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It sucks.
Good for you, dog.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, so that's 2022, just after when I moved up to the Gold Coast.
Did you have
from
a
Sydney.
general aversion to online prior to that? Like, what was the impedance to you going online before?
I wanted to leave Sydney.
Oh, interesting. So that
So-
was a catalyst.
Time and
Yeah,
place.
decision made by lifestyle.
Decision made by lifestyle. I had to go all in, and I was like, well, I don't have face to face now, so
Yeah,
gotta
that's right.
make
You
a
had the
plan.
garage set up.
Yeah, I had the
you're the kid at
garage
that
set
gym.
up,
I remember
yeah.
that. You were Do you remember this guy's gym in his parking space?
Yeah, with the brick wall there.
No,
Yeah.
no. When he was
no.
in the building in Chatswood before he got the
No, I
house,
didn't
he took
remember
his
that.
parking spot. And
got
I'm sure he had
evicted.
a ton of shit.
I got evicted.
Yeah, dude, he was running a business out of a parking space.
Unreal.
That's the most South African shit I've ever heard in my entire life.
Fuck it, I'll find a
that was
way.
nuts.
Yeah, single car space, 3 levels down underground, and I got evicted. I was running 40 sessions a week. I was making $4,000.
Could you
Yeah, what's your
imagine?
excuse?
Well, could you imagine like parking your like Mercedes next to the squat rack of the deadlift platform and be like, I'm not fucking doing this. There's no way.
That was it.
No,
It was
no.
great. That was the iteration of just taking everything to the next level. Like that started me. Obviously, I had a bad start into the Australian market. If we were,
Any start in the Australian market can be a bad start.
it can be. Yeah. So COVID hit at the right time, and call it dumb luck of just ordering a whole bunch of equipment just before we got locked down, purely because I didn't want to go insane myself. And the gym that I had been working at, the members, when everything kind of closed down around COVID, a couple of them just reached out to me and like, hey, we got nowhere to go. You're posting like videos, training videos in your car space. Like, are you doing sessions? I was like, yes, I am doing sessions.
That is the only time in the history of mankind that exercise equipment has been an investment. That's like buying.
Yes.
It's like buying. That's like buying call options on airlines on September 10th.
Yeah.
That's like, there's no way this is gonna work out. Like, oh wait, some guy ate a bat. The whole world wants to work out of your parking space. Like that's
That was it, yeah.
That's wild, man. Good for you. Fuck.
Yeah. Then I
Did you-
was evicted. Then had to find the new house, and set up the double garage setup in there.
That was
and
nice, yeah.
Then
That was the one.
Just I doubled down. I was like, all right, I'm going to do a thing out of a house. Moved that up quite nicely. There was again 40 odd sessions a week, and then Sydney. Like it's good, but it's not what I wanted and what I was looking for. And I took a big leap to move to the Gold Coast with zero money.
That that's 160 hours a month training. If you're hitting a 120 mark as a PT, and it's funny because like these numbers used to be so ubiquitous when I got into training. Like
Yeah.
if you trained at a club, it's like you got to hit 120 hours. That was sort of like the metric that everyone kind of talked about. And I don't think in today's generation they have any concept of what that means, right? Like everyone's about like overall case or like client load, like how many clients do you have? Which like a client is not a unit of measurement, which I think is like a really stupid thing. Like
How
it's
much
a
are
really
you
odd metric.
actually working?
Right. Yeah. It's like this room has white walls. It's like, well, that doesn't tell me anything about the surface area or volume of the room,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it's a qualitative. These are people, right? And so for me, it was always when I started out, like 14, 16 years ago, whatever that was. Yeah, probably closer to 16 years ago. That was the benchmark in person. And I think one of the reasons I was, I don't know, reluctant, annoyed, like moving into the digital space for what brief tenure I had as an online coach. It was just I couldn't fathom the spreadsheet as my office rather
Yeah.
than the gym floor. Like, did you have trepidation of that, or were you
Oh,
so
yeah.
outcome focused that you're just like I don't care?
I had like a problem with not being able to get hands on like the people side of it. It's like I personally thrive off of that a lot, but I also don't like people. So like the spreadsheet is really nice when I can just manage a spreadsheet with the communication aspect on the side of using WhatsApp or my phone, allowing me to kind of interact or get that touch point of what I was looking for. So it kind of gave me a bit of both, but it's part of the reason as to why like I jump at anything in person now as much as I can, because I do miss that aspect of it.
No, because when you build spreadsheets, like you build spreadsheets. Like I open spreadsheets and it's built. That's whatever that open
Yeah.
thing is. When did I'm curious as the evolution and watching it from like the close sidelines, the evolution of your systems. Like how is your coaching, even just maybe from a starting point of at first like the spreadsheet itself, how has that evolved over time? And then maybe we dovetail out into like the rest of the systems.
I mean, spreadsheet, there was always like trying to find some form of, I don't want to say software, but originally it probably started more with like a software because that was client management. My theory was the better that I could manage the client or the profile, I could get a better result. So yeah, I was getting fed up of not being able to have a trackable system that wasn't just a notebook, a training book with clientele, that I could pull up at any time or any position and like get some form of data point from that. Going from the in-person side, because in person back in South Africa, I used to have an old school A4 book and used to either print off or write their programs, like just sit there and write the entire program. And then they had a filing cabinet. And that's where their books
Amazing.
at.
Yeah.
And they'd come into the gym and they'd go and like open up the filing cabinet, pull out their training book. And that's how it worked.
Yeah.
So that's my old training books. I have all of my old training books, the same concept like that. And then as it evolved and like became more, it's like I get clients like sending me a message. They train with me 2 times in person and have their 3rd program. And they'd be like, oh, I don't know what to do for this. Now, I don't remember fucking writing a program 2-3 weeks ago for 50 clients. And I couldn't then refer back to what that program was. So then I was like, okay, I have to have some form of ability to look at what they're looking at when I'm not there. And that's kind of how the evolution of looking for a system occurred. Moving into coming over to Australia, the spreadsheet side was just the next iteration of, okay, data collection. I came over here and I started learning a little bit more about the ins and outs of collecting biofeedback data, kind of those aspects, which I was doing in person in the training book, but I just didn't know how to like map it or what I was actually looking at. And that's where the spreadsheet then came in of building those things out. Like, how do I track water intake, which is something so stupid because in person, you talk to your client. You're like, oh, how much water have you had today? Oh, 3 liters. It's like, okay, great. And then you go to the next day and I could never really look at the data or look for that information. So the spreadsheet was built off of wanting to be able to refer back to things to then make better decisions kind of going forward. Moving on from that, the spreadsheet and the systems and that I run now is literally 4 years in the works.
How do you audit? I feel like I've known you to kind of veer in and out of the box solutions in the software space. We've talked about the problems that we've run into. We've looked to address some of those problems from a software perspective, but I'm always curious because I feel like I watch a lot of in-person coaches, for those that are still existing, move into the digital space, and they kind of fall in to the same trend, just in a different arena. Like the trend of you're just going to infinitely scale up your client load until you're burnt out or you cap your earning potential, and you're going to stay in the same space. You're going to keep doing the same thing. You just do it in a coffee shop rather than on the gym floor. Where it's like I've watched you explore different options of client management softwares and watch you build out your own as a byproduct of that. What is the auditing process? Because I think that's something that someone might have this realization or see an opportunity in their earning potential or their lifestyle and go, okay, I need to make a change. And then they make this massive change from in-person to online, or sometimes it's gradual and then veering off into online specifically or only. But then they just stay on this new path forever. How do you audit your systems? How do you make improvements? Have you historically judged when to veer into and out of the box and back into softwares or back into spreadsheets? What is the process there?
So it's been pretty basic for me. It's when a problem happens. So what I started seeing is in the very beginning, it's teething issues. So you start to pick up on what the common problems are and you track the common problems. So certain softwares, it's like, oh, you couldn't track certain data. It's like, well, that's a problem. Like I can't create customizable metrics to be tracked for individual clients. I don't work with the same client in every aspect. Every client has a form of variability that has to be there so that I can gather that data and make the informed decisions. Now, if the constant problem is that I can't customize the data, I look for the solution to customize the data, whether that's a new training system or a new program or eventually coming, spreadsheet, and then coming out of that is the more times a problem occurred that I unfortunately have rebuilt my systems a stupid amount of times. But every single time it's occurred is when there's been a problem, and then I literally sit down, I look at that problem right there and then, and I go, hold on, this is going to occur again. So it's looking at a problem that occurs, understanding or having the foresight to go, is this going to happen again? Is this a once-off? Is this something that I need to provide a solution for right now? And is this going to be a bottleneck within the system's ability to scale? And a lot of the time it is, and that's been the problem, is these things are not, that problem is going to slow down or stop your scalability. So you find the solution. And a lot of the times that has been coming back or coming away from a software that I then have the flexibility of, or the ability to customize it on the fly, do things very simply. One of the biggest problems that wasn't necessarily a problem of a client standpoint, but was actually of my time management, was you need internet connection for softwares. That's a massive issue. It's like you want to be in the back of an Uber. Yes, you can tether. Signal doesn't work. A lot of these apps need a decent form of internet signal to be able to load or bring up the pages where you're programming or looking at data. Google Sheets, you just work offline. And when I get internet again, it just updates everything to the system. To me, that was like one of the pivotal moments in my entire business of I have the responsibility that I can now work wherever I want to work. It's an opportunity, but it's a responsibility that I actually have to work now. So I need to make sure that any time that I have available, I need to be working. If I don't have internet access or access to internet, I can't work. That's a problem. So like that was like my main, like one of my big issues, well, probably one of the other issues, which I've told you, unfortunately, with a software that I was using. I don't really want to get into that, but essentially, like that was my main problem. Like I want to be able to work anywhere, anytime, without the only bottleneck being like, do I have my laptop and is it charged? That's it.
Yeah. There's nothing that looks worse than like, obviously follow a lot of coaches in the space. We work with them very intimately. Is the story post of attention clients.
I can't stand it.
Oh my God.
You've
dude,
got their number. Send them a fucking message.
Yeah, there's like, but it's not even the message you're sending to your client. It's the message you're sending to your potential clients.
Correct.
Which, and I use the word potential very generously in this case,
Because
because
it's
they're
not
likely not going to be your potential clients,
Yeah.
right? Every time you post that, you give Mac 5 new clients.
Yeah.
Right. But it's
Because
funny.
he's going to respond to them.
Well, it comes down to the auditing process, right? Of like, if you're running into this problem, comp rep, for example, right? You travel around, you found somewhat of a niche in the comp rep space. Those are long days. I've been there, I've been backstage, I've been, posing rooms and pump up rooms and all that, and it's a lot. But like, you can't project that any of your clients are like your kids, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have clients that I work with in person, and guess what? I do have favorites. I have guys I really like to work with, and I have guys that I tolerate working with. Right. And I have had guys that I've chosen to not work with. But, you can't project that out. Like, everyone will have their day, but it's like, as long as, like, I think of this coming from the commercial gym model. I worked at a commercial gym that charged, on a monthly basis, as most do. And there's stat holidays where legally they kind of have to be closed. But the gym I was at in Canada, they were open for a certain point. They would have holiday hours. But because you were on contract for 365 days a year, the contract is two ways. You pay them for 365 days. There's a service that is provided to you 365 days a year, right? I think a lot of people don't realize that or make that parallel. It's like, hold on, you can't cherry pick the stuff you liked coming out of your old job and not the stuff you didn't like. It's like, no, you still have a contractual obligation to service your clients in some capacity. It might be something akin to holiday hours, but like that. The laziness, the projection of just an overall lack of care or a lack of foresight to see this problem coming, when show days are. Yeah. Nothing fucks me off like that.
Yeah, but that's like, to add on to that whole thing, it's like I travel, I do this, I go to comps and stuff like that. The best response to message that I get and I send to all my clients when I know that these things are happening, I send them a message 2 weeks out. And like the next check-in that comes in, everyone's like, hey guys, I will be traveling from this date to this date. You will get your check-in responses. Please understand that communication may be slightly delayed. That one message there solves 99.9% of all problems that could occur, because I'd rather get ahead of it and have the foresight of that than sitting here and I've got clients messaging me and not being able to respond to them, and they sit there going like, hold on, why am I not getting my communication? Why is it a little bit later than it generally is from that? Where all I did was 2 weeks ago is I've notified them. It's easier to notify them, tell them that there's going to be some form of delay versus asking for the forgiveness from that standpoint.
Yeah.
So Mac, I want to talk to you. I want you to actually speak on something that we talked about the other night.
Yeah.
Because we had a conversation about making decisions around clients devoid of the impact of the monetary reward that comes from it, right? I think a lot of trainers get into this space, and they get into this space with the intention of making money, of course, but they're in a place where they have to make money so that they can continue doing what they're doing. Right? But the conversation that you and I had was about making decisions out of your client's best interest.
Yeah.
Right? And that's in itself a retention model. But at the same time, there's kind of this gap that you need to bridge, right? Of getting to the place where you need to make money so you can keep doing what you're doing, as opposed to being in this place where, okay, money's an afterthought because you have the money coming in and you can focus on making the right decision for the client in that situation. So from you picking up, leaving Sydney, moving online completely, what was that process like in bridging that gap?
It sucked.
Yeah.
To be honest, like it was one of the hardest, like not just decisions, but processes to go through because one, I had no money. So
that's a hard thing.
That's a hard fucking decision.
Stressful.
And it more so sucked from the standpoint of, like you mentioned, is I had to take on clientele that didn't necessarily fit what I was looking for. Mm-hmm. However, what I would do is I approach that with every situation of I could learn something from this. This lesson is either going to be, hey, I really don't like working with this type of individual, or maybe it's I need to learn how to better my communication skills. It's a me problem. A lot of the times what I found with clientels that I don't like working with, other than some really assholes, like it's a me problem. I need to learn how to communicate what I'm trying to get across to an individual in a different way. There's sacrifices that need to be made. And it's like, and this is one of the hard parts, the hard decisions is as you're building your business up and as you're kind of getting into these things, you unfortunately do need to take on clients to make money. Right. Okay. Don't sell your soul though. And I think that's the second part of this is I have values, I have morals, I have a standard, and I have a type of clientele that I like working with from like an ethos standpoint.
Right.
But there are also parts that don't fit my mold. What I did is I would look at the aspect of that client or look for the aspect of the client that I really enjoy in the shittier clients. Because then that kept me going to the point of attracting the people that I did actually like working with or that I could thrive and work with in a better manner, get better results. And eventually the people that I didn't like working with, it's like, well, I just don't want to work with you and I'm going to move you on.
What gets me is like, look, every man's got his price.
Yeah.
Sell your soul at the right price. I think one thing, and I think social media is to blame, it's hard to have these conversations without talking with the inundations on social media, is, look, you don't need that much money.
No.
Yeah.
Like I somehow lived overdrawn in my bank account for like a really long time. And I think that recalibration tool is, I would go as far to say now in the experience I've had and talking with the coaches we've spoken with, thousands across the world, that learning how to do more with less is your best asset starting with business. Absolutely. And now it's the point where I deliberately look for situations where I can dig myself into a hole just to recalibrate, like, okay, if I can still, like with business operations, we have a partner that we profit share model with, and we're trying to make a great experience for one of our courses, but the experience for the course isn't just for the students, it's for the staff internally, and it's also for our partner. Like there's a book, and there's this what's his name, Golden Circle guy. Anyways, doesn't matter. He wrote like it's a book called Leaders Eat Last. And it's like that idea that like, look, man, like if you're the one collecting the value from the transaction, extracting money out from value, I think is a really good point of discernment. Is because if you can build value in the relationship, that is a multiple of whatever dollar figure you'll make, right? That saves you on advertising costs. That saves you on marketing. That saves you on emails. That saves you on client acquisition. Like, and I think people aren't willing to sacrifice, and it's like, because you don't really know what sacrifice is, right? Like, if you post a Seneca quote online, or if you post some bullshit on the Daily Stoic, and you don't for the rest of that week eat canned tuna and oats only, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it because I think it's like putting yourself deliberately last.
Yeah.
Is something that I think is consistent of people who, A, most importantly, provide the most value. And the reason I put that A and most importantly is because that's what they put first. That's what but B is like, yeah, they're kind of making the bag. You kind of do that. Like if you want to be selfish, do it that way. Like I had this thought when I was living in Dubai that there'd be videos. Dubai has an Instagram account called Love in Dubai. It's a huge PR thing, but it's great. Like the country's kind of a whole PR scheme across the board, but it kind of like the page will put on, because the whole country's closed caption TV, the page will put on videos of people doing like good deeds. Like there was an Uber driver that saw like a brick in the center of the road. It had fallen off the truck or something like that. And it could have been pretty destructive. And he like pulled off to the side of the road quickly, like did a little Frogger thing, didn't get hit by a bunch of cars and dragged the brick off the road. And that ended up on the social media account. And it ended up like he got a bunch of praise and maybe even like a new car or something like that from the prince. And it's like, yes, exactly. Dude, even if you're the most selfish, self-interested person in the world, the way the world works now is it's aligned interest. You being selfish and understanding what you want and you providing value to other people is like, those two things are the same thing. Like if you want to buy like a fancy watch or you want to buy like cool shoes, then like if you selfishly want those things, then lay down in traffic for someone else. Someone's going to videotape it and you're going to be on fucking, Oprah or some shit, right? Like even if, look, because I don't necessarily care about intent. I care that people get treated properly. Yeah. And it's just crazy to me like how short-sighted self-interest is, because self-interest can be a great thing that has a net positive if you understand, like if you can play it out long-term, like if you future-proof your life. So it's like, obviously your intention is like you love working with people. You love the career path that you've chosen. But even if you didn't, it blows my mind the number of people who are like, look, you want all these things, you know the straightest line to it. It's just fake it, pretend if you can, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not the biggest thing for me, and like why I do a lot of what I do is I've always said I want to be what I needed when I went through all of my shit. And yeah, I went through an injury, I went through, the process of what happened there, but all I actually needed was just someone to actually hold me accountable and be like, hey, this will be okay, we can continue, and give me a path forward. So it's like, it's not my mantra, whatever the fuck, but it's my reason as to why I like coaching and what I want to provide, or my anchor when I start. That's going to be used a lot. My anchor in terms of what I want the experience for my client to be. When I work with an individual, I want to make sure that they have that support. Yes, I understand that there's like a bottleneck to that. There's a scalable bottleneck to that. However, I don't give a shit because I care about the people that I work with. And that caring factor has done me very well in terms of like, one, I get referrals, as you were saying. Like that's the easiest business model and marketing scheme that I've ever subconsciously, consciously done. Like I just give a shit about my clients. It's not that hard. It honestly isn't that hard to just care about an individual that isn't yourself. But like you say, understanding that by caring about this person who pays me money is me being selfish in a way. It's like that's it.
It blows me away. And there's one thing I did like about coaching. I mean, it's true face-to-face, and I guess true online, but how little it takes.
Yeah.
That's what, and like regardless across the board, like how little effort it takes, which is like half of that is really sad because like, well, what are the other interactions that people are having every day that aren't as positive? But it's like, and I think, cream always rise to the top, but I think everyone is trying to get there by their own means. And it's like, man, I think there's really only one way in this industry to create a superlative product that, leaves you financially independent. And that's like giving a shit. Yeah. Like a lot of people will get elaborate, like this post is this and this post is that. It's like, dude, those posts mean nothing. You don't even have to post. Yeah. If you have, if you posted more on Instagram, then if you wrote more captions than check-ins that week, right? Or if your captions are longer than your check-ins. Like I remember like, I'm big in the weeds. Like I like the exercise programming side. I like the binary stuff. And when I was coaching, I used to spend 20% of my check-ins on the email and 80% on the program, right? Tweaking techniques and tempos and exercise order. And I'd always be kind of just like fucking with shit because like that's my main area of focus. When I switched my main area of focus, flipped 80-20, my emails 80% or my phone calls 80% and my updates 20%, not only were my clients happier, but they got better results.
Yeah.
It's exactly, it's the communication standpoint. You guys have seen, me in the last week or so. It's like I'm constantly on my phone making sure that like giving updates, giving feedback on things, like communicating with the person who pays me money. It's like, it's a funny concept of like giving a shit about that person and just being like, hey, this is perfectly okay. Like, that's great. The check-in's coming through. I take my time with that. I have the systems in place now, kind of like we were talking, and it's taken me time to get to that. And it's funny that you say, the flip of the 80% into the check-in and the 20% into the program. It's like that's evolved, I'd probably say a very similar percentage, especially in the last year for me, of understanding that the more I pre-plan things, so the more that I've now looked at, 18 months ahead of a life cycle with a client, whether it's programming, whether I start looking at nutrition, whether I start kind of front-loading all of this work, and then I can spend the time on the communication standpoint. My clients get better results, they're happier, I get more referrals, my business has thrived. It's like, well, there's clearly something to that. Like, unfortunately, we know that like training programs only matter if you can get an individual to do them. So you can't get an individual to do them. You can have the most elaborate program you want, but they're just not going to do it. So if I can, substitute or fill in that gap that's missing there to make sure that my client's doing the program or getting enjoyment out of it, or actually completing the tasks that I want them to do, the results are there. So it's not a complicated thing, I don't think.
Something I think you do better than most people I've seen in the coaching industry is giving negative feedback.
Yeah.
I think that setting expectations and holding people accountable it's lost in the side where we're in the service industry, right? So I think a lot of people over deliver on the make people feel good side. But I think where you really excel is telling people what they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have a hard time with that. So what's it like I've seen your client check-ins, your consults. What's your process in terms of setting expectations for clients?
I think it's honestly, it's just like being realistic around what we can achieve. I'm not there to sell you a pipe dream.
Right.
It's not this like flash in the pan bullshit. It's like this stuff takes time. If you want to compete, we need to be realistic with like what you look like, for example. Unless there's copious amounts of drugs, your physique's not going to change dramatically within a 12 or 24 week period.
Right.
It's like the more time we have, the better that we can actually create. The better the experience, the better the coaching, the better the physique. And like in my world, that's the goal, is making sure that we have the best possible physique within that time period. It's like, I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up your ass and be like, I can get that result in 12 or 20 weeks. One, because when you don't get that result, you're going to be pissed off at me. Two, I look shit as a coach. And it's like, now I've just fucked my whole business, and 20 weeks down the line, I lose a client, and now I have to go and try and acquire another one. It's a lot more difficult to acquire a new client than it is to just have the conversation in the very beginning, be like, hey, this is going to take us longer than what you anticipate. But if you trust me and we go through this process and we tick off the boxes as we're going along this period, you're going to get that better result, which makes them happier, which they stay for longer. And I don't necessarily have to worry about trying to acquire a new client. I have to worry about picking the next show after we compete in a year's time.
Yeah, I love that approach because it is a very result-oriented profession, but at the same time, you're getting a lot of buy-in around the process, right?
Right.
That's retention in itself.
Yeah, well, that's what makes a good business, is retention.
Right.
It's like the longer you can keep that client there, the more their lifetime value requires. It's like the less money I've spent on accruing that client. Like it's not difficult to make sure that you give someone a realistic expectation of the service that they're coming to you looking for. I'm not going to get you diced in 10 weeks. It's just not going to happen unless you're in a really good position or there's a whole copious amount of drugs. Like, but that's also not the individual that I'm going to be and not the type of coach that I want to be from there. So it's setting that expectation from the very beginning to make sure that we then both get the outcome that we want. I want a happy client. I want results. And my client wants the results. So it's like we both win by doing that.
Yeah.
I think it's something where you look at the word buy-in And like, I don't think people just don't really respect words, which really bothers me. I'm a big word guy. Is like, you have a really interesting model where, you know, because people will talk about buy-in. They don't actually have their clients buy in. Like, buying in is not just like getting them on board to do the things or trusting you. Buying in is a commitment, right? And it's like, I love what you did with your branding in the last couple of years of like, it's, no one is going to go to a guy whose business is only the committed, who is setting realistic expectations and setting long-term plans for client success and expect a 3-month commitment. That's not, that is antithetical to the very definition of the word commitment,
Correct.
right? Like that. So I think what you're forcing your clients to do and really setting that tone of the relationship out of the gate is like, you're forcing them to buy in. And force is the wrong word. You're kind of putting a mirror in front of them. Like, do you really want to buy in? Because this is what buying in looks like. And I think having that placed in front of people who don't understand, like, unless you've got really shredded, don't really know what it takes, right? You don't know the mental fortitude that it takes. You don't know how it's going to impact the rest of your life. You don't know how low energy levels are going to affect your relationships or your business, whatever it is. So like, it's the marriage of those two things I find super interesting, because I think a lot of people understand the ethereal concept of buying in, but are sending payment registration links every month. It's like, dude, that's not buying in. Right? Like, you know, are you going to be a real estate agent next month? Is your client still going to be there next month? Like, it's a reciprocal thing. And when you lead with that, when you extend that olive branch of like, hey, like, I'm in this for the long term, I think it brings a lot of barriers down for people, because it is such a transient space with, you know, as you alluded to, like some bad actors. It's like, this is what I do. Like, I think there's such a professional element to it that I think a lot of people overlook in the lieu of like a short-term injection of cash.
Yeah, it's a business. It's like you mentioned it in the previous podcast. Like, I'm a business owner. It's like that. I kind of treat this that way, and I think when you start viewing being a personal trainer, because essentially that's what I am. It's like, but I run a business. I want this to have a professional feel to it. It needs to align with the way in which I uphold that standard, or have that standard of what I'm trying to achieve. Only the committed. You can't, that's my brand, that's my ethos, that's who I am. That can't be matched with like a very small mentality around these things. It can't be matched with an individual or my own way in which that I provide the service. I have to commit to you. It's like, but I can only do that if you commit to me. So it's like, I can't give you the 50%. I give you 100%. You got to give me 100% on the same back end of that.
That's what always gets me with clients running or trainers running sales.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's the projection of that to me.
You just devalue your service.
You devalue your service, but you deservice your service.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're only charging that much.
As much.
Yeah. You know, it's like nothing like a good Black Friday sale. No, what I love after Black Friday sale is the activities of trainers after that. Like, look, your clients likely in this industry came through the medium of social media, right? They're buying into more than just your results. But like, man, the number of like vacations that trainers go on, and like, this is what kills me, and I've seen this so many times. Nicole and I had a laugh with this the other day. It was the large influx of people who are coming in, which you're bringing in low quality clients. Usually, in the case if they're waiting for a deal, they too are not fully bought into the process.
Yep.
And then the week that follows, the large influx into a business that doesn't have the systems to scale or to accommodate rather for, you know, 10, 15 new clients.
Yeah.
Then the additional slap in the face of, hey, clients, you know, there's a lot of you now, so I'm going to have to, you know, be careful with your, or, you know, be on the lookout. It's going to take me a bit more time to get back to you. And then like takes off to Bali or something, right? Bali, the Australian Mexico. And they just sit back and like, it's like, dude, these people are following you, right? Like, you know, when you're at some bullshit fucking retreat on their dime and they're waiting for their program and you're sitting there spending their bread, it's like, man, like that's the time. Like, there's a time for that, sure. You know, like we're on the tail end of like a pretty cool 2-week trip. Not that we haven't been working, not that we're not working now, but it's like, you know, we're not turning around once the fucking money hits the account and just like, balling out. It's like, no, that's the time to work, right?
Yeah.
The time to enjoy it, that comes later. That comes with the fulfillment. And I don't think you actually get to enjoy it until your clients have been serviced, right? Until your customers have been taken care of. Then when you get to kick back for an afternoon, in Melbourne in a park doing fun stuff or whatever we're going to do later, it's like, that's enjoyment, because you don't have to worry about checking your phone. You don't have to worry about like someone killing your buzz and going like, hey man, like, think I could get the blah, 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 blah. It's like, dude, like, if at the very least, again, like if you're purely driven by your own self-interest, then do a good job.
Yeah.
Right? Like one of my favorite things is like honesty. When you're self-aware, honesty is a selfish pursuit, because I don't not lie to people because of how it makes them feel. I don't lie to people because of how it makes me feel.
Yeah.
Right? And like that as a part of the ethos of like the brand is like, dude, that fits into my lifestyle, right? I love when I have 10 minutes to not do anything, like to not have to have my mind pulled in 10 different directions. Like, fuck, is this this person gonna message me? I haven't gotten this done. It's like, that's why I only need 10 minutes, right? I don't need, quality and quantity are inverse relationships. We kind of understand this at scale, but it's like, I don't need a ton of time to relax.
No.
Because if I can take 10 minutes like without my phone in my hand, I don't have to worry about what goes on my phone. Right? Like we can sit here and rap for a few hours and it's like, yeah, we'll have some stuff to sort out, but I'm not stressing about nothing right now. Like there's no pin out of a grenade anywhere right now that's just waiting to implode. And it's like, if you run that business, like, dude, there's no way you're living a lifestyle that you set out to live.
Yeah, but so to follow on from that, we can sit here and do this and not be stressed about it because we woke up this morning and we got our work done.
Yeah.
So we had the foresight once again to know it's like, I got tasks to do, I got shit to do, I got commitments that I've committed to with these people who pay me money, who want a service, and I'm providing that service to them. So I got up early this morning, I took my calls, I made sure that my check-ins were done because I knew that we were away for 3 hours doing podcasts. It's like, it's a time period that, yes, I would generally sit and do check-ins. It's like, so I just moved everything and shifted a little bit earlier because that's the responsibility. I'm an adult.
Because you
Be an
care.
adult. Because I care.
Right.
That's it. That's how it should be.
Yeah. You care about the product that you're putting out there.
Correct, because reputation is everything.
Right. And I think the thing that you do better than most people is you self-assess how you're allocating your time, right? That's a big conversation that we had earlier, is that when you see something that's inefficient, you can look at it and be like, how can I fix this in the future so I can scale it?
Yeah. I mean, that's, this trip was the task manager, Google Tasks for the win.
Yeah.
It's been one of the greatest tools that I found.
But I also think too, like that behavior of auditing extends outside of business. I think there's a reason there's a lot of familiar faces in the rooms that we're in, is because it's like, yeah, I remember talking to my therapist years ago because I used to get really mad at myself if I had to go back in the bathroom more than once in the morning. Like once I went to the bathroom, I went contacts, brush my teeth, get dressed, shower, do whatever, and then leave. If I had to go back for something, I'd be like, God fucking damn it, man. Like, Jesus, you've been in here. You don't need to go to the bathroom. Like, I would get like mad. And first off, my therapist was like, you're nuts. And I was like, that's bad for you to say that. But I like worked on that, and it was behavioral. And it was like, okay, like I'm going in the bathroom, I get everything. I know what I need to do. There's an itemized list, so I save that time. And if I save that time every day, I save like a ton of time over the course of the year. And it's like, whether it's, forgetting to put my glasses in the case or whatever, or whether it's, hey, I don't really fuck with this person, right? Like the reason we fly across the world to hang with you is like, because there's no one really between California and Broad Beach. Well, there's not many people between California and Broad Beach that aren't sand in the ocean, but like that I fuck with. And I think a lot of people, if you're going to look, business can be tough to move because I think the relationship that people have with money is tough. And a lot of people don't understand or don't respect how they developed their relationship with money. Like that was the big sticking point with me in business development was I grew up thinking people with money were bad, right? Because my parents worked for the people with money. So the people with money were the reason I never saw my folks because they were always working for them. Meanwhile, like they got to go on vacation and my parents would work fucking 16 hours a day. So like one, I don't think people, if you're getting into business, you need to have a real conversation with yourself or a mental health professional about your relationship with money.
Yeah.
Because that was almost for me a non-starter out of the gate. But the first thing you can do that's nothing to do with money directly is, we talked about auditing your systems. It's like audit the people you spend time with.
Yeah.
Right? Before you even, like, don't even look at your screen time. I don't even care about that. Although peripherally that could be an extension of the people you spend your time with. Audit that piece. And I'm not saying, and this is where like these conversations go off the rails, because a lot of people will do that and they'll just fucking send long messages like, fuck you, I don't need you in my life. Like, dude, show an ounce of gratitude for the people that have got you to where you're at, and then just understand like they're not going to be the people that get you. If you start there, everything else begins to fall in place. I think people, like, a business is a byproduct. Like, we talked about brand, and we talked about personal values, and we talked about, well, how is it that you can instantiate your values into a brand, right? And I think you need to be able to, how do you instantiate your values into your life, right? And then the brand just becomes a byproduct of you, because you're so used to, like, everything around you is just the people that emulate and live these values. And then, you know, your brand of Only the Committed is benefiting by sitting next to this guy.
Yeah.
Because it's like, who else is, you know, when I think Only the Committed, I think him too, right? And it's like when people see him and they see what he does and they see his level of competition or his work ethic and they go, oh, okay, yeah, there's no uncommitted dudes in this room.
100%.
And imagine if you were rocking with some uncommitted guys that were like, you know, just transiently weaving in and out. And I think if there's a consistency of people that you don't fuck with. It's like, we could do a whole podcast on that. We could do a lot of podcasts on that. But I think if we were to nail down the bedrock of the thing that is most consistent with the people you don't vibe with, is that they're not committed. Yeah. They haven't acted something through and seen something all the way through to the end.
Yeah, that it's the typical like actions, not words thing. It's like I don't care for what people say to me, because at the end of the day, people lie. Everyone's going to lie from that standpoint. It's what you do. It's the follow through that matters to me more than like the words that come in your mouth. You have my back. It's like I have yours. It's pretty simple. And it's been time and proven to me over and over, especially with like the individuals who I do keep so close to me, that at the drop of a hat, I pick up my phone. It's like someone will answer. It's like, and those people are the favorites on my phone. It's like, because, and the favorites on my phone in the contact list on Apple, because I know that those are the people who are committed, who are embody the same values that I have within my life, which transpires into my business, which transpires into the way that I portray myself to my clients, to the service that I provide. Like, that's why what I do affects you guys, and what you guys do affects me. It's like, I've always seen that as like, it's a mutually beneficial transaction. It's like, I'll lay down my life for the company and what it can provide for me, because I know what it does for my business, what it does for me. But I can only do that if the people in that business are worth doing that. And it's like, that's been proven time and time again.
Well, I think it's funny because, like, on the flip side of that, your clients know that when they call, that you'll drop everything.
100%.
And it's only as a byproduct of, I think it's, I have a hard time. You said something to me years ago that's stuck with me ever since. We were talking about programming, and we were talking about clients, and you said, man, you got to zoom out. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, you're assuming that everyone wants to get better. And I was like, holy fuck, like fisheye lens 0.5 for a conversation yesterday. And I was like, holy shit, I never occurred to me that people would do something and not want to get better at it. He goes, yeah, dude, that's most of the people.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, and it's kind of dawned on me years ago that, like, or in recent years, that, you know, people like don't value. I didn't know it was something you couldn't value.
Right.
Like, it couldn't.
Because that's not your people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like, I wouldn't know how, because for me, I wouldn't know how to survive. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that, right? Like, so to me, it's almost like a prerequisite to being alive. And to see that not be played out, it's like, dude, what kind of life is that? That's got to be like I would compare it to calling 911 and no one answering.
Yeah.
Right? Imagine someone rocking your crib and like, they cut the power lines. Like, dude, that's a feeling I would not want to go to bed with, man. That's nuts.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, that statement rings so true in so many aspects. But it's, again, it's not our people. It's like someone who doesn't want to put themselves in an uncomfortable position to make sure that they can get better or learn about. I don't want to say learn about themselves, like not fucking woohoo superficial shit, but like, not being exposed to something that could make them better, Like people are happy with comfortable. It's like, that's fucking boring.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm okay with that. Like I have friends who, and comfort's not the right word, but I have friends, and I keep these friends, and I find like there's parts of what they do that I find really like that are like really noble, that have done the nuclear family route, and like have taken the career out of school, and like didn't take as many risks, and like that's what they wanted. But the thing is, those guys, and they're some of my closest friends, they don't bang on about pretending to work hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the thing. It's like you got to be about it all the way through. And I think that's what gets me, because it's so easy to be like a work hard culture vulture and just like sort of, and I've said this, 10,000 times in the last couple of weeks, but it's like, to paraphrase the way you would say it, it's like action over words. It's like at a certain point, like the chickens come home to roost. Like what's been done, that's the only thing that matters, is what's been done. And I think in an industry that, again, like the process orientation allows people to create this kind of like fugazi of value by just like, having, posting these stories and like, this is my meal and this is my this, and this is like, I don't give a shit, man. Like, are you in the same place you were 6 months ago? Then that's what matters, right? And it's funny because there's a catch-22 with fitness and physique development and coaching. It's like, yeah, there are aspects of this that thrive off consistency. Sure, if you can eat the same meals and do the same thing, sure. But that plasticizes the brain, that plasticizes the mind, like that hardens, that casts you in that place. It's like, I'm all about this, but like I'm all about having a good time. And I think the people who are most successful, it's like they think that this gargoyle turning to stone of habit and consistency is some sort of noble. Like we talked about this the other day. Training hard is not hard work.
It's not.
Right? The idea that there's this false equivalency of the work hard culture vulture crew going like, I train so hard there, I work hard. It's like, if anything, I see that, I don't want to say being the inverse, but it's like those two things are not the same. Like there's no common denominator between those two where you can make those two fractions equal.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of it comes back to setting expectations, right? Is that if you are setting clear expectations with yourself and defining your success, then that's okay. It's okay if that's having a home and kids and all that stuff. That's successful for a lot of people. But I have a very different view, very personal view of success. And I'm not going to pretend that that's my version of success and lie to myself and be upset and complain because I don't have a house and kids and a car in the driveway and all that stuff. I'm pursuing the thing that I believe to be success in my mind, my personal definition of success. Right? And I think a lot of people aren't honest with themselves or aren't honest enough to set those expectations with themselves that they can truly define what successful is to them. And even if it is that, I think a lot of like that work hard culture might be saying it might be this, like you should be striving for this, and they're not honest enough to say like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I think what did it for me, and because we were all there at a certain point, and there are things that nudge us along the way, and some more aggressive than others. It's like, and we talk about this in L1, is like the key to goal setting is highlighting the parameters of failure.
Right.
Yeah.
So what has made this easy for me, and I could probably speak confidently about you guys as well, is I worked hard, but I failed even harder. Like I failed so hard.
Yeah.
And it was like, and I honestly, the more I talk about this, the more I think that like jump to know how hard it hurts to hit the ground. Yeah. Right? Because that'll recalibrate your pain. People talk about people will ask me about my tattoos often. And I have a couple on my head and they hurt a lot. Like a lot. And if anyone, I don't want to meet the person that goes, yeah, dome tattoo, no problem. Like you're a psychopath. But one thing I always notice after I get my head tattooed is that my next tattoos don't hurt as bad.
Yeah.
Right. And the one thing I've noticed since hitting a pretty much rock bottom when I left California 6 years ago was it's all relative. That was like the fucking head tattoo of failure in my life, was just like, I had no money. I had nowhere to live. I had less than no money. And right, I owed a bunch of people a bunch of money. And one of them is a bank and they're still kind of upset with me. And the other's a government, but we're in Australia now. But it's like, lean into that as no more like a calibration tool, right? And if for no other reason, then you'll know definitively okay, maybe this isn't for me. And I respect people who will swan dive, into the shallow end to find out how deep it is, and like, hey, sink or swim, or you know what I mean? And it's just, this mediocre, just like floating, right? It's like, dude,
It's inactivity.
yeah,
Well, there's appreciation for every situation, right? If you can be in a really shitty situation and appreciate the benefit of that, then you're really going to be able to appreciate the benefit of a better situation, right? Like the more shit you shovel, the more grateful you're going to be when you're not shoveling shit anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the calibration you're talking about, is that, fuck, dude, we've all shoveled shit. Like you moved from Sydney, broke as hell, didn't have a business.
Yeah.
You figured it out. You shoveled the shit. You were in that hard place. You were in that stressful place, but you appreciated that and you used it to create a positive from it, right? There's a lot of people that just kind of exist, right? And they don't have the appreciation for the hard times. They don't have the appreciation for the good times because they've never seen that swing from one side to the other. So once you can calibrate, once you can get the dome tattoo, like, it's not so bad when it's on my arm now, then that's the appreciation that you can take, that you will never be in that place where you're ungrateful for where you're at because you've seen how bad it can be.
it's to the point now where like people talk about sacrifice. It's where it gets thrown around a lot, and it's like, come off it. Like sacrifices, like there's no crosses or beaches in Normandy. Like we're not talking sacrifice here.
Right.
I like reframing it as it's a prerequisite, right? Like this is a prerequisite. The stuff that I did was a prerequisite to this. It wasn't a sacrifice. I didn't, sacrifice my place in California and the life that I had. Is giving that up was a prerequisite for this. And that simple frame shift goes, oh, okay, I have to do this now.
That's
and the
gratitude.
thing is, I think all of us would look back. Some of my, we have great times now. Some of my favorite times, and this tells me that like, are you oriented on a path that you're actually passionate about? Because some of my favorite times are crawling into your office at 5:30 in the morning with reusable grocery bags around my wrist because I got our podcast studio in one hand. Yeah. I got my uniform for Stanford in the other. I got my training gear in another. I got my lunch in another. I got my backpack, my laptop in another. And I got my briefcase, laptop, and clothes to go to Apple in another. And I got to go up to CSA that way too. And I got to bring something to Jeff. So I would literally come around like a fucking pigeon lady in Central Park with 8 bags. I left California to leave the entire life with less bags than I would go to his office with 3 or 4 times a week.
That's real.
And it was but I look back at that and go, those are some of my favorite times. Like, we've had some ridiculous meals on this trip. One thing that what we brought up the other day was one of my favorite meals was the first time we bought Chipotle and donuts on company money. Yeah. It was like, are we doing it? Are we doing it? No, it's like, but whether it's whatever Burns Steakhouse, whether it's, SDK, wherever, like the place we've eat all over Australia, that's still the best meal I've ever had. Right? And it's just like, people are so quick to just disrespect their past or not appreciate it because they see it as something like a sacrifice that they did that for this. It's like, no, you did that because for this thing, right? And it's just like this. You brought up the word gratitude, and it's like, if you want to be grateful, it's not fucking up the thing that you work towards, right? Like there's no bigger lack of gratitude to me than putting on your client sale than fucking off on a vacation. Like, that's not gratitude. Gratitude is staying up till the job is done. Yeah. Right? That's what gratitude is.
Fucking privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a privilege. So it's a responsibility. If this is the service in the industry that you're trying to work in, it's like it's your responsibility to provide that service. It's pretty simple. It's if you were to work a normal corporate job, you still got to show up at 8 to 4 and you got to be there and you got to do the work. It's like, this is the same thing. I treat it in that way.
Yeah. Like imagine being like a nurse.
Yeah, and you
I just don't think people think the gravity of what, and I couldn't imagine doing a job that I didn't think mattered. Yeah. Right. Like that would kill me to no end. That would be torture.
Respect yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. For no other reason. Like one thing we were saying this the other day. There's nothing I love more than people that do simple jobs really well. And then we were walking us, you goes, yo, dog, you just explained my entire business. Like some of the best service I've got has not been at the French Laundry in fucking Napa Valley, like the most ridiculous restaurant on the planet. It's been like a doorman at a hotel in New York City, right? Or it's been like a guy who works like a bus driver in Toronto. Like that's some of the best service I've ever got because that job is so consistently done without effort and care, without and nothing against those types of positions, but there's no incentive. Like you want to talk about character, it's the definition. The definition of character is how you treat people who can't do anything for you. It's like, I'm a guy riding the bus. There's 10,000 people ride this bus a month. Like, I can't do anything for this guy. I tap my card on the thing. I sit the fuck down. For that guy to be able to make an experience and all I'm doing is sitting down, like, that's crazy. It's like, okay, he's just got to drive the bus. So you're in charge of people's health. So you can have like positive, oh yeah, I'm going to get there eventually or whatever. I don't really blame him. It's cool. But you're in a position to actually make a change, to take people somewhere. And all you need to do is to add a little bit of care on top of that. Like, I remember I had a business mentor once. His name was Mario Simon. He was the head of Boston Consulting Group, like big time, like one of the largest consulting firms for Forbes 500 companies. And we were on calls on like a weekly basis. And I was going into this job interview and I was like stressed about it. And he goes, like, where would you feel most confident? I'm like, I'm most confident when I talk to the guy who bags my groceries at the grocery store. He goes, oh, it's super interesting. He goes, why? And I'm like, because that's low stakes. And he goes, man, you got to realize it's all high stakes, right? He goes, when you talk to that guy, it's high stakes. You got to treat it like it's high stakes. Because if you do it then when you walk into your job interview, it's high stakes, right? If it's always high stakes, then you can enact your values onto the world and your reputation is going to grow. Because if the guy who bags your groceries is brothers with the guy who's going to get your interview, you know what's going to get you the job? Not the guy who did the interview. The guy that was fucking bagging your groceries. And he's like, that's one thing you got to recalibrate, is that it's always high stakes. And I was like, holy fuck, dude. Like, that like shattered my worldview. Because I am more calm. I'll talk to anyone about anything. And it's easier when it's not transactional.
Yeah.
But if you realize that your transaction of your reputation is always on the table, then that's the highest stake there is.
Well, yeah, it's the biggest transaction.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, your reputation is everything. So if you're going to portray yourself in that manner, make sure that it's in a way that you want someone who has nothing, that knows nothing about you, but if they were to see you, and like you're saying, like the brother being the grocery packer, it's like you want your reputation to matter in that in that instance. It's like, to me, that's invaluable in terms of where it could take you. You never know what that opportunity could do. So it would be really stupid for you to not literally just give a shit and think that this is going to matter in the long run, because it is going to matter in the long run.
Well, I mean, I think just looking at where you are from where you came from in such a short period of time, it's like you see that, you know, the little things don't add up, they multiply.
Yeah.
How many people have been working in this industry for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times as long as you, and don't have a business which is tangential to the point, but don't have a reputation like you have, right? Like, each touch point, each opportunity is an opportunity to provide value, and it's an opportunity to build that reputation. And like, that's really, like, you want to talk brand, you want to talk marketing. That's what all that comes down to. Like, that's what all those words really mean. If you're to do a factor analysis on all the buzz bullshit words that, you know, especially people in the fitness space bang on about, it really comes down to that essence of reputation. Like, and does this guy have the reputation of getting the job done? Yes or no?
Yeah. That's actions, not words.
Actions over words. James Macintosh.